Screenagers, welcome back to another episode of the Canon. We got a fun one today. We got more Hitchcock on the docket for today, and we've got a great crew for it. I think this is the most amount of people that we've had on an episode in quite some time. So, special guests, why don't you all identify yourselves? Not all at once. So I guess it's gonna be hard to do. Well, why don't we start with the giggle that we just heard?
It's me, Ramona. I am very, very excited to talk about this movie.
Hi, this is Bob again. I also is one of my favorite Hitchcock films, so excited.
And Jacob Holmes.
Very nice. We haven't had Jacob on since season 1. You missed all of season 2, so
yeah,
we're happy to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Bob and Ramona, we haven't had you guys on since. I mean, it feels like it's been forever. It's maybe been a few episodes, but it has been at least a few months since we had the break between seasons. So happy to have all three of you on. Happy to be talking more Hitchcock. If anyone listened to our episode about the birds, which I believe was in season 1, you'll know that I have a tough time saying the full name Alfred
You just trapped yourself there.
I just trapped myself. You know what? It works, so we'll leave it in. But we also discovered before we turned the microphones on that I also have a hard time saying the name of this movie. I got tripped up saying Rear Window. Hey.
You did it.
I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. Nice. But before we get into the movie, because it's still January, it's still early 2024. The thing that we've been doing for the last couple of episodes that we've had so far this season, and what we will be doing for the rest of January, is a fun little question of asking everyone who jumps on what New Year resolutions they may have, and that includes the dogs. Jacob, the dogs are going to have to answer the question as well. But before we jump in to Rear Window, I did it again. Hell yeah. I want to quickly see if you guys have any New Year resolutions that are specifically related to movies or could potentially be, something adjacent. So if you have like writing goals for contributing to Screen Age Wasteland that you have, talk through any of those as well. I know, Sailor was on the first episode and he wants to watch, forgetting the guy's name, but he wants to watch more of this one Japanese director from like the 50s and 60s because he's Sailor. And of course that's his, that's his resolution. We had Dahl on last week, and Dahl wants to get out to the theaters more. So we got a good mix so far. I'm trying to watch at least 15 to 20 movies per month. I will say so far in January, I am not on pace to hit that, but there's still time. I'm not giving up. We're still going to hit it. So yeah, if you guys have any, Ramona, do you have any resolutions specific to movies that you're, trying to make for this year?
Yeah. I mean, every year it's the same thing. It's just to watch more movies than I watched the year before. Last year, I don't know. I don't think I did as great as I wanted to. I did watch 4 movies today. I'm trying to watch some more movies. I'd like to get to the theater a little bit more than I did last year. And I'm closing in on my 400th rom-com review. So I'd like to get that out of the way soon too. So it's really just watch some more, try to branch out into some more genres, and so far so good. But again, it's January when you feel inspired and motivated, and then it kind of peters out after a while. So fingers crossed.
Well, now that you're saying it, and we're going to put this out on the internet, this is going to live forever. We can hold each other and hold ourselves accountable for the resolutions that we make. So we'll check back in a few months, and hopefully things are still looking up.
Yes.
Absolutely. Jacob, do you have any movie-specific resolutions for this year?
Sure. Yeah, I think I have a letterboxd list that is my favorite movie from every year, ever. And
Nice.
I have a long way to go to fill out, anything before really probably 1990. I mean, I have lots of movies before 1990, but especially the further back you go, it's really bare. And I definitely don't have, most of the movies from like the 50s and before, like that's the movie I've seen from that year. So it's automatic.
1954.
So just trying to see more
automatically
movies.
This movie, yeah.
You said every year. How far back does that go?
Well, it's kind of spotty, like for instance, right now, Rear Window is definitely my favorite movie from 1954, I think. But it's just, if I have a movie that I really love that is from one of those times, I just kind of stick it on there. But I think, could probably go back to like depending on how film history you want to go, kind of 1920s. I'm gonna have a hard time with silent movies. I won't lie.
It's ambitious.
What's the oldest movie that's currently on the list?
Let me see. I think, honestly, it could be Bambi, because I forget how old Bambi actually is. It might be The Red Shoes, Wizard of Oz,
Oh, nice. Of course.
1939. So I haven't, yeah.
Wow.
That's
But I
pretty
don't have a year. I don't have one every year since 39.
Mhm. But that is the oldest movie currently
Yeah,
representing
for
a given
sure.
year.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
If you had to put a number on it, how many years would you say you want to fill this year?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I'm not even sure how many I have filled. But let's keep it easy and say 20.
That's a great number. I feel like I'm doing like a New Year resolution, like group counseling session right now. And we're all each other's accountability buddies.
Raph is doing the is like you have to put a number on it. You can't just say you want to do more.
That's totally me just like pulling in from my professional life and making everything, like a goal that has some sort of number attached to it. We'll get there. We'll turn it all the way off. But Jacob, I dig that. That's a really cool resolution, and a cool project. I would never think to do that, because then there's like that one year that has like 5 of your favorite movies.
That's the funny thing about it, like that I found making the list. It's like you hit years like was it 94?
Yeah.
You're like, God, and then like you have these years where you haven't seen as much, and you're like, well, this kind of wins by default. Like, and there's years where it's just like it seems like, was there any good movies this year? I haven't seen any good ones. I've seen a lot, but they're not great.
But none of the good ones. Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I dig that. Well, Bob, do you have anything on your end that you're looking at for this year?
Nothing as cool as that, but I'm hoping to write and draw more, not just for myself, but for Screen Age as well. So I'm back doing Fear flashbacks, and every other week I'll be doing some more Monster Sketch Mondays. So that's specific to Screen Age, and my biggest one is I want to get out to the actual theater more this year. I only got to see 2 films in the theater last year, and I was like, I got to do better than that. Those are rookie numbers. I got to get out there and see some stuff in the actual theater. So, and I have a gift certificate to one of the local cinemas, so that will hopefully help me fulfill that.
Yeah. I got a gift card to a movie theater for Christmas, and already burned through it. And it was one of those like one of those theaters that serves food and drinks with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I blew through it, because, well,
oh yeah, that's expensive.
Right.
Here's a fun little story. So I get the gift card, and I offer to take my girlfriend to go see Poor Things, and we're going to go on Saturday night. So I go online to buy tickets for Saturday night. Saturday night comes around. We're getting ready to leave to go see the movie. I double check, the tickets on my phone to see what time the movie actually is, and I realize that I purchased 2 tickets for Friday night.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So I spent part of the gift card on tickets for a showing that I just didn't go to.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
I ended
no.
up buying 2 more tickets for Saturday night. We end up going.
Jeez.
We're sitting there. We're looking over the menu, and she's like, "Wow, this hot dog looks really good." So we order the hot dog. She orders the hot dog. I order whatever I order. Hot dog comes. It's awful. So she ends up ordering
Of
a second
course.
meal, and then by the end I was like, we're already blowing the whole gift card at this point, so may as well get the freaking brownie sundae and do it up, and, spend the whole thing. So in
Aw.
one viewing, spent, I don't even want to say how much, but spent the entire gift card.
Holy cow.
Damn.
Yeah,
Holy
but it was
cow.
worth it. Poor Things is great.
My wife and I
Yeah.
also blew through a AMC gift card seeing Poor Things, and then we had to drive an hour to go see it because our local theater doesn't show those kinds of movies very quickly, and so we went all the way out there. So we're like, when they had the recliners that we don't have, so we watched it and we're like, "You want to stay for Color Purple?" So we just went right back in and
Nice.
saw another one.
Nice.
Same
Nice,
gift card
yeah.
Yeah,
for both movies.
yeah.
Nice. That's the
That's-
way to do it.
I gotta ask. When I get a gift card for whatever reason, if I don't have any money, I can find like 100 things that I want to watch or buy or whatever. The minute I have a gift card, I'm suddenly the most discerning person on earth.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I can't go see, I don't want to go
Yes.
see that movie. And yes.
And it's funny because when you're a kid, you can burn through that stuff real fast.
Yeah.
But like now I still have gift cards from Christmas in my wallet. And I was like, I have to wait until I find the perfect thing. And
Yep.
they'll sit there for a long time. I did not get a movie theater gift card, by the way, but that's all right.
We have to get you one. We got to get you.
I have a Cinemark membership, but that's really only one free movie a month. So I use those every month.
Yeah, that's great, Ramona.
Yeah.
I feel like you're good about getting out to the theater, and you're gonna
Yeah.
inspire the rest of us. We're all gonna go.
I do. My sister is my movie buddy. It's just difficult to get out with the husband because you have to get a babysitter for the kids and all that. So I go out a lot with my sister, and she likes to see a lot of the scary stuff that my husband is not a horror fan, which I'm sure I've talked about on here before, but we try to go at least once every weekend. We have breaks and stuff in between when we have other things going on, but I think I did pretty well, just not as well as I would have liked. So I'm going to see if I can kick that up a bit.
Very nice. Once a weekend those are strong numbers. That's
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
And we like to go in the afternoon when there's not a lot of people there.
That's the best time.
I've gone to a few Friday and Saturday night movies, and I'm always like, this is why I don't do this. It's just I don't people.
To me, there's nothing better than like a Sunday 11 a.m. screening.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
like 3
anything
people in
between
there.
11 and like 1:30 is my sweet spot.
Yeah, it's so good.
My local theater has discount Tuesdays. So that's when I go.
Yes. I'm actually excited to become a senior citizen someday. Get that discount. Get the cheap tickets.
Those are also the best screenings. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot in terms of resolutions. We've got some good ones on the books. Before we get into Rear Window, I will quickly shout out another one of mine, just because I want it out there, and I want to make sure that I actually do this. So I'm going to put it out here now. I would like to write at least 10 reviews this year. 10 reviews for 2024 movies. If I could do that, I will be a very happy camper. I don't know if I'm going to hit 10, but that's the mark that I'm setting for myself. So
it seems like a doable number.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Just don't make it feel like an obligation. Once you start feeling like it's an obligation, that's when you lose the mojo.
Yeah.
As long as you like it.
I needed that. I needed this,
Yeah.
Ramona. So we have our resolutions. We are all each other's accountability buddies, as we've said. So now we can get into Rear Window. We can talk some Hitchcock.
What's his first name?
No, not doing it.
Sorry.
Absolutely incredible movie, 1954. One of the best movies ever. It's like you watch it and it's beyond easy to understand why it's in the canon, why we consider it essential, why it's essential viewing. You watch so many movies from today, the last 20 years, the last 30 years, 40, 50, on, and you can see how many of them are pulling directly and indirectly from Rear Window. So like its place within cinema history and its influence is very easy to see. All that being said, instead of starting in our usual place of talking about everyone's first time viewing the movie, first experiences with it, all that good stuff, we're going to do something slightly different because our good friend Jacob over here mentioned that he may or may not have a bit of a little nitpick with the movie. So I feel like we should jump off our conversation. We usually don't do this on the Canon. We like to be very positive, very pro movie, we like to build things up and talk about them in glowing ways. But I feel like Rear Window is a movie that doesn't have many detractors or many people who have even slightly negative things to say. And Jacob, I know you're not going to like rip the movie apart, but I feel like we could jumpstart the conversation with your slight nitpick, which the other three of us, we don't know what it is. We haven't heard it yet, so we will be reacting to it live. And I think we just take the conversation from there. So Jacob, floor is yours.
Yeah, well, so appreciate that. So I've been trying to get through a lot of the kind of classic films, and it always seemed like Alfred Hitchcock was a good. I expected to like all of his movies a lot, and I do like them. But every time I watch one, they're built so up. It's just kind of like, okay, that's okay. It didn't quite maybe hit to that level, and really, this movie. It's so wonderful. There's so many great things about it, but it starts out especially really focused on like the romance aspect. And there's been a lot of memes about it, but it's just kind of a funny setup to have this kind of young, rich woman who is really, really basically begging this kind of old, grumpy, poor dude to marry her. And of course, there's a lot of character things there with L.B. Jeffries and why he feels that way. I mean, those are good character traits, but just the setup and it's unclear what the ages of the characters are supposed to be in the film, but the real life age gap is kind of pretty. I think it's like 20 years. So it's just one of those things where it makes you scratch your head a little bit. I think to be like, why? What? How did they meet? Why is she so dead set on him? But we do see some of that later in the movie, and watching it a second time, it kind of evens out a little bit. The first time watching it, it threw me for a little bit more of a loop. But I think it's a fair thing to look at. But yeah, what did y'all think about the romance? Because it really takes up a big chunk of the first hour as they're setting just a little bit of seeds for what's going on across the courtyard.
I agree with you, I think. But I guess my thing with the romance in Rear Window is I kind of already enjoyed it because the actors made it feel like they had that history already. And again, she is young and very wealthy, and he finds her to be too perfect, which is why he's holding off on wanting to marry her. And then the whole talk about what he would do or what she would do if she went with him on his photography trips. So it seemed like he was trying to find all these reasons for them not to be together. And she was just like, well, it doesn't matter. I want to be with you, which I thought was kind of sweet. But you have to also know that he's been in a wheelchair for 3 months, did they say? I can't remember exactly how long, but I can understand why he's grumpy because he's stuck in that damn wheelchair. And, I
had not normally that grumpy. I mean, yeah, you don't really get that.
Yeah, you yeah, maybe they have a completely different relationship outside of this particular setting. It's a very claustrophobic setting for him. And I had foot surgery last year, and I was literally in my bed for 3 months myself. And it is not a pleasant feeling. It's not great for your mood. So I guess I could kind of see why he might be kind of grouchy and irritable and kind of pushing her away a little bit. But the thing I loved about it is she didn't let him. And that's how I knew they were a good match.
And I agree too. We just watched this again yesterday, and I think at one point either I said to my wife or my wife said to me, like, "Why is he such a dick?" Because he really is kind of almost cruel to her, especially in those early scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But there, of course, the people in the courtyard and stuff, those are all like reflections of that relationship too. The little bits and pieces of that relationship. So they all reflect those aspects of, are they both going to end up alone? Like Miss Lonely Hearts? Are they going to squabble all the time? Like the Thorwalls, obviously he's been stuck in a waist high cast for however long it has been. So he keeps looking longingly over at the newlyweds and their closed window pane. And so all of that stuff's reflected in that relationship. But I did feel like this might've been the first time that I was really aware, and maybe it's because I watched a lot of movies from this time period where there was a lot of the woman's in her 20s, the guy's in his 40s sort of stuff. So it never used to hit me before, but it definitely had the, look, Jimmy Stewart, I like you a lot. You're a really good actor and you're a nice guy, but it's freaking Grace Kelly.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I did. I felt that a little bit too, Jacob. So
I will say that my favorite part of them building that relationship before it kind of really dives into the murder mystery is when they're arguing about her going with him on his jobs, and she gets up to leave and he asks if she's going to see him again. And she says, not for a really long time, or at least tomorrow night. She leaves. Yeah. And it's just perfect. It's like, this is why I love it so much. Yeah, he's a dick. I think he has his reasons for that, but she's just very dramatic, but she's very realistic too. She'll be back. She's not going to leave him. So I love that part.
Yeah, and I will say too, like at the second half when it does kind of pick up on the murder mystery thing, and there gets to be more action, it's like that almost makes the relationship more believable when that stuff is going on than when they're actually kind of talking it out. It just kind of clicks a lot more, I think, when you see they have action instead of talking, just kind of helps that.
It does make me wonder, like, obviously they've had this relationship for a while, but I wonder how much they've actually gotten to know each other, because there's that one moment when she comes back from when she slides the note under the door and almost gets caught, and it comes back in and she's all excited, and they do that quick shot to Jimmy Stewart, and he has that look on his face like, I had no idea this woman had this in her. It's the first time he's really looked at her with almost desire in the entire movie at that moment. So I'm like,
yeah.
Did you not realize that she had this? Like, is this the first time that you realize that she actually has a little bit of a thrill seeker personality? So,
Bob, I'm going to jump off of that. And
okay.
I feel like the interesting thing there is that because of the setup of the movie, and I guess we're already 25 plus minutes in, but we'll do a quick plot overview. So, but I think you guys have covered most of it. But basically, setup of this movie is Jimmy Stewart plays a guy who has been in a work accident, so his leg is broken. He's unable to leave his apartment, so he spends his days looking out of his rear window into the apartments of his backdoor neighbors, and he has stories for them as they go through their lives. He watches them. They don't really know that he's there watching them, and eventually he gets the idea in his head that one of the neighbors killed his wife and thus sets everything into motion. So because so much of the movie takes place, not even so much, but like pretty much the entire movie takes place either in Jeff's apartment or looking out of Jeff's apartment into the other apartments, he doesn't see Grace Kelly's character. What's the character's name? Lisa. He doesn't see Lisa until she's physically in the apartment building that he's been watching. Like, he's so preoccupied with that, he obviously can't see the great thing that is right next to him. And he doesn't realize how great she is, even though she says, like, I'll be an adventure seeker, I'll go to the end of the world with you, all of that good stuff. He doesn't see any of that until she's in danger in the apartment across the street. I don't know what that means, but it is kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I like he just seemed very impressed by her willingness to do what she did with Stella, digging up the garden and climbing up the fire escape. And, there's that sense of excitement and that thrill seeking. But of course, then when she's caught, that's the consequence of what he's been doing this whole movie, is he could very easily lose her or put her in that danger. So it was a really nice little arc in terms of their romance from beginning to end, I thought.
Yeah. And there are little touchback things that Hitchcock does, like when she first shows up, in that great slow motion kiss and her just kind of appearing in his face kind of thing. She does when he says, who are you? She does the introduction as she goes over and turns on the lights slowly in order, giving her 3 names, Lisa Carol Fremont, I think it is. And then once she starts buying into him, okay, maybe there is a murder going on. There's a scene where they've been in the dark and she goes and turns on each of the lights in the same order again, but she's not the same person when she does that. So it's like a reintroduction of her character at that moment. So
that's a great observation. Cool. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. That's amazing. Now I want to go back and watch it again. Pick up on that stuff. I didn't notice that. That's great.
It's the first time I've seen this movie like 20 times, but that's probably the first time I've noticed that.
I feel like this is one of those movies that so much of it is in the details, and obviously a lot of that is due to the fact that Hitchcock is, at the head of things, and he is, like we talked about in the episode about the birds, he is very much so a master of cinema. And I feel like it's really, really, really super apparent in this movie. So, Bob, you mentioned that you've seen this movie over 20 times, maybe. So maybe now is the point in the episode where we go back and you all talk me through sort of the first times or the first time that you watch this movie, sort of your overall relationship to it and all that good stuff. So, Bob, why don't you give us a bit more on your relationship with Rear Window?
Okay. It's a little embarrassing to say this, but this is the movie that my wife and I had our first kiss watching.
Yeah. That's so cute. I'm not joking either. That's adorable.
Yeah. It was the movie. We'd been watching movies together for a while and had kind of like thought maybe we were moving in a direction, but this was the movie that we were like, okay, maybe we're more than just friends on this. So it's a very important movie to us for that reason.
What was this
feeling? Yeah, it was after the movie. We're not heathens, so we got to watch the whole film first,
during this movie. You have to pay attention.
It's not a make.
I was going to say, like, hold on a second. I think there's something going on in that window.
Yeah.
Right. Push your away from you.
Yeah.
Your wife was like, Bob, I really want to kiss you. And you're like, hold on. I think there's a murder happening.
I think there's a murder happening. Exactly. That's
Life
how it
imitates
works.
art. Yeah.
Yep. So it's one of our favorite films for that reason. Silence of the Lambs being another.
Ooh.
That was our first date Just,
It's the perfect date movie.
I know we should have watched these back to back. No.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
Nope. Yeah. So we watch it every couple of years. So something like that.
I love it. Ramona, what about you?
Funny story. A couple years ago, I think it was 2022. I've never seen this movie before. And Duke called on me for my Canon write-up for Rear Window, and I said, "What? I don't think I ever agreed to this. I have never seen this movie before." He's like, "Well, you volunteered." I was like, "How?" I was like, "Was I half asleep? Like, why would I do that?" So I set up my iPhone at work, closed my office door, and I watched the whole movie. And thankfully, I loved it. I did not answer my phone when someone would call my office. I was like, nope, I'm not working until I finish this movie. It's not the kind of movie you just pause and go do something else and then come back to it. So that was my first viewing of Rear Window. And thankfully, again, the Canon write-up came very easily to me after that because it was fantastic. I came home and I was chatting my husband's ear off about it. It was one of those movies that made me like my hands were sweaty. And I don't know if that's because I've only seen a few. Mom spaghetti. I'm break out and rapping now. No, but I've only seen a few of Hitchcock's movies. Only a few. So I guess this was that movie that I was like, damn, like maybe he like really is what everybody says he is. And I need to watch more of his filmography. So, yeah, that was my first time watching it. And I've watched it again on a sick day, I think last year sometime in the summer. Still fantastic. And then I watched it again today, kind of refresh myself for this episode. And it's phenomenal. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. So, and I do watch a lot of romantic comedies. So my brain is kind of dulled on quality cinema, I guess. So when I do watch a really great movie, it's just like something is awoken in me. And that's what this movie did.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that you watched it on your phone. That's like the best first viewing.
I watch it on my work computer. They know what I'm doing. If I'm on my phone, they don't know.
Yeah. That's amazing. That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, does your story of the first time that you watched this, does it match Ramona's in any way?
Well, so kind of, because I only saw it for the first time fairly recently in the last 2 or 3 years. Again, just trying to kind of work my way through all these classic movies I haven't seen because I didn't really grow up watching really classic movies. Didn't have a lot of movies. So, yeah, I was trying to look at, Alfred Hitchcock and Psycho. I think kind of that was a little bit underwhelming, probably a little bit because I knew like the twist, so you don't have that same sense of surprise that it's supposed to deliver a little bit. But and then Rear Window, kind of going into it, I thought this is probably the movie I expect to be my favorite Hitchcock movie. And I mean, obviously I'm here because I really like it, and it's right up there around with like North by Northwest. I think North by Northwest I may put over this right now, but I've only watched pretty much any Hitchcock movie besides this one once, so it's kind of hard to judge. But the weird thing for me coming into this movie a little bit is like, I watched Disturbia before I watched Rear Window.
Oh man,
right?
Yeah,
it's one of those weird deals where it's like I've seen the basic gist of this before because I saw the thing that the much paler imitation that was kind of based on this movie. So it's it's a little bit different coming into it, I think, with that lens. But obviously, this is much better than Disturbia in many ways, in most all ways. And and I rewatched it again just at like right around the turn of the year, preparing for this review. So really, that's all I've got with Rear Window, and I need to go back because it is one of those that has so much detail that you just want to watch it again just to figure out really everything going on. Because I definitely on that second watch, I feel like helped increase my love for the film a little bit more.
Yeah, there's so much in it. I feel like, so I've only seen this movie twice. Ramona, like you, and Jacob, like you, I hadn't seen this movie until pretty recently. Maybe same deal, like 2-3 years ago. if that, 2.5 years ago. I had never seen it, and decided to throw it on one day. And it's one of those movies that, because it exists so prominently within the zeitgeist, I feel like I say zeitgeist once an episode. There should be like everyone should take a
Drinking
shot.
game.
Yeah, every time I say zeitgeist. Gosh. But because it does exist like so prominently within the zeitgeist, it's one of those movies that you watch, and even if you haven't seen it, you're like, I feel like I know this movie. Like, this movie lives within me somewhere. But either way, I absolutely adored it. Because I had watched it so recently, and based on my own personal experiences with COVID lockdown and starting to work from home, my old apartment setup, my workstation was right by the front window looking out onto the sidewalk. So every day while I was at my workstation, I would see the same neighbors, the same people who would run every day at the same time, the same people who walk their dogs every day at the same time. I would see the upstairs neighbors and like them getting in and out of their cars and stuff, and the people to the left of me, the people to the right of me getting in and out of their cars and all that stuff. So I had like in my own head, like, I would sit there, I'm bored, it's COVID, I'm working, and I see all these people. So I start making up stories for them, making up stories about the dogs. And like, if I don't see the dog going for a walk on a certain morning, I'm making up stories about why the dog isn't going for a walk. So I'm essentially, I am the Jimmy Stewart character, except my broken leg is COVID. Just like an extended period of COVID for years. So, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, I'm this guy. I am totally him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do this in my day to day. So I immediately loved it. And I would be lying if I said that my new work setup doesn't also involve me looking out of a window for most of the day and making up stories about the people who I see. So, that's
no murders yet, though.
No murders yet. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for murder. Yeah. Well, every day I wake up and pray that there's a murder outside of my window. I want to investigate.
Right.
Yeah.
It's when you get your girlfriend involved and it becomes a thing. It's great. It'll be a lot of fun.
I would totally send her out to investigate the murder while I
sneak into the other house or apartment.
Yeah.
I can't wait till she hears you say that on this podcast.
Yeah, she knows. We've talked about it.
She knows what her role is here.
Yeah. She's the adventurer. I stay at home and look through binoculars like Jeff. Okay, I wanted to ask you guys what you all make of the single location and the restraint of never going beyond, Jeff's apartment. Like, I feel like the temptation must have been so strong for the movie to go into the other apartments, to go even beyond the courtyard and show us other things. So I was curious what you all thought about just the self-control that it took for Hitchcock and, everyone involved, all the other filmmakers and storytellers, to really like limit the scope literally of this movie.
Well, I would, that's one of the things I like best. I think that's why we're here talking about this movie in most ways. I'm not sure from what I've read about Hitchcock whether, like the story came first or the idea of, I want to shoot a movie looking out a window into a courtyard the whole time came first, honestly, and built around that, just the way that he operates. But, last time I was here, we were talking about 12 Angry Men, and it just does something when you are in such a confined location. I think, especially if you have like a kind of a thriller suspense like this, when you don't have that ability, and it puts you in, obviously, the main character cast, I guess, just kind of confined. I mean, you can't go anywhere. I mean, obviously, there's all these other characters are going in and out, but it really wants you to keep that perspective. You're there with hanging out with LB Jeffries, not going off and doing all those other side adventures that he just gets to watch from his window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love the background stories about them building this set. This was Hitchcock's first movie for Paramount, and Paramount was so happy to have him that he got a real sweetheart deal as far as like guaranteed number of films. He also got like the rights to the 5 films that he made for Paramount devolved back to him after 8 years. So he was like making films that he really wanted to make. And he kind of threw everything into this first film. And they didn't even have a place big enough to fit the set that he wanted. So they actually tore out the floor and used the basement where they stored all of the stuff for other movies. That all had to go so that they could build this courtyard set. And it's just amazing to me. And they built this huge drainage system because they have scenes in the rain. And they had like lighting people like passing out because there was no ventilation. And the heat would rise from the lights because the lights were old-fashioned lights that had put out huge heat. So all the characters that are on their top floor apartments, and the lighting and electrical people up there were like constantly just on the edge of heat stroke the entire time that they were there.
Jeez.
Yeah, but it's such an amazing set.
It's fantastic.
Even just the designs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one of the things, like Jacob said, is you're with Jeffries in his room. You can't go anywhere. But at the same time, you kind of are visiting those other apartments. I mean, you're looking almost right into some of them anyway. So I didn't feel that it was as claustrophobic as it could have been if he's never seeing those particular people in those particular moments. But I mean, they all have their own story. It all keeps you, engaged in what's happening. But at the same time, I get the isolation kind of adds to the suspense of it all, especially when Lisa does go into the other man's apartment. And you can't do anything either. And you want to be like, where is she in there? What is he looking at? So you only see what Jeffrey sees. And I think that's the brilliance of the movie. And the set is beautiful. As soon as the movie started, I was like, yes, I love it. I love all of it. It was so well done. And I had no idea those stories of building the set. And of course, in my brain, I'm like, oh, they went to an actual courtyard and set this up. And they didn't, but you couldn't have told me differently. I would have believed 100% that they were on location somewhere.
Yeah, that's wild that they built that entire set.
That they tore out a basement.
They were I guess they were on a soundstage and just needed to do some nifty maneuvering. I
had seen an interview with Pat Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock's daughter, and she said that when they did the lighting, they took a bunch of extra time to set up lighting for like 4 times a day, like early morning, full on daylight, early evening, and full on night. And they were all different lighting setups that you could just do it with a flick of a switch. So wow. She said it was always magical when she was on set, when they would set up for a new time period and someone would say, twilight, somebody would hit a switch and it would go from broad daylight to sunset immediately.
There's just something about those practical effects that you don't get in today's movies anymore. Because it doesn't feel like they use them that often. Just flipping a switch. Now everything is computerized, computer generated. Yeah. And one other thing that I, watching it today, realized that I love so much is when he's in his apartment talking to Stella or Lisa or the detective friend of his, I forget his name, Doyle, maybe. Yeah. You hear the background noise from all around him through the window. You can hear the people chatting. You can hear, the birds. You can hear whatever, which I don't know why I love that so much, but it just made it feel more real that that sound does not close off as soon as he's talking to somebody else within his apartment. It's still, everything is still happening outside.
Yeah. Yeah. What are they? Diegetic noise? Is that what it's called? Where you're just basically using the ambient noise all around there. And then the only music really comes from either people playing the radio or the musician working on that theme.
Yes.
That's great.
So all the
Loved it.
sound is technically diegetic. I heard a cool thing that they, in order to capture all of the sound from the apartments across the street, instead of miking the actors the way that you normally would for any of those shots, everything was mic'd from the distance of where Jeffrey's apartment would be in relation to them, so that it all reads within the movie as Jeffrey's would hear it. Which,
Oh, yeah.
That's
like
pretty
this
awesome.
all, I feel like you guys have all kind of touched on this, but it all sort of plays into the whole movie is like basically one big POV shot, in
Yeah.
a sense. Like we are so insanely connected to the perspective of Jeffries that we essentially end up, viewing the events of the movie the same way that he reads them. And that's due to the fact that even down to the way that like the sound is picked up is through his perspective. So, that's not something that I would ever pick up on while viewing. I don't think that most people, I'm sure that there are people out there who can pick up on things like that, but that's just like subconsciously adding to the effect of the movie. And to hear that like actively pointed out, like totally blew my mind.
Yeah. I mean, everything you see him witnessing, I mean, you kind of also feel his emotions. The couple who sleeps out on their porch for whatever reason, getting rained on, having to drag their mattress back inside, just the little things like that you can see his expressions of how he's viewing them. The arguments between the Thornwalls and Miss Torso, of course. And it's just, everything is through his point of view. And I think that's what makes it so great is you're feeling those emotions with him. And I think that's a mark of a really, really good suspense thriller. And this was one of those.
And we get such a good introduction to the set and everything and the character with that first shot that just kind of pans over, gets all the apartments, all the random things the neighbors are doing, and then pulls us back through the window and kind of reveals to us, I guess, for the first time that we were watching that through the window with this guy in the cast. And then, of course, it gets to the point of being, it's all show, not tell, and showing the pictures on the wall and the camera. I don't remember if the camera is broken for some reason, but showing the camera next to him to tell us that he's a big photographer or whatever. And, even showing his name is on the cast or whatever. So
Here lies his bones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a great shot. It does reveal so much. I mean, it shows his name, but it shows the busted up camera, and then it pans directly up from that busted camera to the shot of a race car's tire wheel flying through the air towards him. And we're, invited to infer that that's
why he's got that cast. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a great storytelling method because you get so much information in such a small amount of time, but it's done in a very engaging way. It's not like, I don't know, a lot of exposition or whatever. It's showing, not telling. And I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. And of course he started as a silent film director, and there's so much of this movie where we don't have any dialogue at all. Almost nothing that we see in the other apartments has any dialogue. Mm-hmm. It's just, you could turn it all off and it plays exactly the same. And I think that's a skill that he brings to all of his films, that show, not tell thing, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
What a wild concept. Using a visual medium to tell visual stories
Tell a story.
as opposed to relying on dialogue, a file scene. There is that phone call with his boss where he's like, where he kind of explains it. But at that point, like, we already know what has happened to him. Mm-hmm. We understand the character. The character introductions in this movie are absolutely bonkersly well done. If it's Jeffries, like you guys were saying, with all of the people in the apartments across the street, with the Lisa character, and even the nurse who, in my what's her name? She might be my favorite
Stella.
character in the movie. Stella.
She's great. Yeah, Stella.
She's a legend.
Yeah.
What are your guys' favorite side stories? So not the main murder mystery, but like of the other neighbors that he's spying on, which ones are your guys' favorites?
I think I was waiting to see, but I think my favorite, honestly, was Miss Torso, just because I love how I don't want to say that Jeffries was infatuated with her, because he wasn't, but he was very interested in that apartment and all the gentlemen who would come calling, and then at the very end, her army sweetheart comes home and he is nothing like those gentlemen that she's had in her apartment. He's this short little goofy guy with glasses, and I thought that was perfection. I don't know why, but that one tickled me a lot.
I think it's hilarious that he's staring at her the whole film, and then when his detective friend Doyle comes in and leers, he seems disgusted and unhappy about it. Like,
yeah.
Dude,
he's very protective.
Yeah,
these are my people.
I guess my favorite changes every time I watch. Like, I think Miss Lonely Hearts is in there a lot because of the travails that she kind of goes through and that she succeeds at the end. This particular viewing, for some reason, it was the musician this time. Like it seemed like a very lonely sort of life. And for the first time I ever noticed, he has that huge party where he's obviously had some big success, and there's tons of people there, and people are necking and people are drinking. And there's just one shot, and I think it's a reflection actually of Jeff's mood at the time, but they pan back over to the apartment and everybody's having a good time, and standing in the middle of it is the musician, and he just looks completely lost and lonely. And I'm like, oh, there's something there. There's some moment, some emotional thing that I've missed before, but I'm getting it now. So I guess this time around it was his character.
That's really interesting. I never picked up on that. It is interesting that all the characters, all the neighbors are in a way like some kind of reflection of Jeffries, and it's either like his innermost fears or desires in some ways. And Bob, like you're saying, like from moment to moment it can switch up in terms of which one he's identifying with the most, which is just, like, again, insane concept to use a visual medium to tell a visual story and to convey emotions visually. It's absolutely insane how good this movie is. Jacob, I think I may have cut you off on something.
No, I was just going to say, as far as watching the second time, I just really get a kick out of watching them lower the dog from like the third floor every time.
Yes.
I love that they have that system and that no one else seems to mind.
That was adorable. I did love that.
Should we get to the murder of it all? I feel like that's
was there a murder?
That's the main draw of the movie, but I guess it kind of is like the major selling point in many ways. To me, it's like the 10th most interesting thing about this movie. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, I could see that. It's kind of the thing that brings it all together, but I can see that kind of, it's almost like one of the smaller subplots, because even while Jeffries and Stella and Lisa are, concerned and kind of investigating and watching, he's still watching all of the other apartments. It's not like his complete focus has gone just to Thornwald and where his wife went. So obviously I'm a big murder fan. That came out really wrong. I'm not a murder fan. Let me go back. Let me go back. I enjoy murder mysteries and thrillers and the like. So I loved this part of the movie as well, but I also appreciated that as soon as Jeffries began to suspect something happened to Thornwald's wife, it didn't shift focus completely away from the rest of the story just to focus on that. So I enjoyed that part of it quite a bit.
I always feel like it ended up being the Thorwalds that was the murder story, but it almost feels like any of those stories could have kind of taken a dark turn into murder country. You know,
Yeah.
Miss Torso has got some shady characters that she's entertaining, and she's a woman living alone in the 1950s. And then, you know, the Miss Lonely Hearts almost, you know, gets attacked when she goes out for a date, and you know, even the newlyweds, there's a little bit of almost exhaustion on the part of the of the husband as it goes on. So it felt like, you
even
know,
the nosy lady, the nosy neighbor down there on her, telling him how to do gardening. I could see that too.
Yep.
I think the payoff, especially of the suspense, though, in that story, where it really kicks into the high gears, is when Lisa goes over there, and just the setup that they've done to make that as tense as it is, because you're not with, and you can see when Thorwald is getting back, and just that kind of tension of knowing what's going to happen, but you know, having that inability to do anything to warn them. I mean, I think that's just that's when it reaches really the height of its suspense, and the phone call to me from Thorwald to Jeffries. That's just a great moment. Less so to me when Thorwald actually comes in the room. It's you know, that moment kind of has to happen. And of course, you have Jeffries blind him with the flash 3 times. But I think really that the height of that suspense, just being so unable to do anything but watch, is kind of great.
Yeah, and the genius is that every movie with a murder scene that we watch is the same. We're the voyeurs watching it happen, and there's nothing we can do. But the genius of this movie is that Hitchcock has made us identify with Jeff so much that we feel his powerlessness in a way that we wouldn't if we were just as disconnected as we are in a normal film. So yeah, absolutely. That buildup of tension where we can't, I mean, I'm almost, you know, gripping my hands as I'm watching the film as Thorwald is kind of forcing Lisa through that room.
And what's great too is they have a legitimate excuse for not being able to call Lisa to warn her that he's back, because they're still watching Miss Lonely Hearts, who may or may not be getting ready to, you know, take some pills that she shouldn't be taking. So there's that question: what do you use your phone for? Do you save this life? Do you save that life? So that was a great, I guess, I don't want to say reason, but a good way to keep that tension where you don't know what he's going to do or who's going to get, you know, who's going to end up being hurt at the end of the night. He's still watching, which is great because his girlfriend's getting attacked, but he still is aware of the other people in that apartment complex.
And no offense to Jeff, but he doesn't succeed at helping either one of them.
No, he doesn't, does he?
Jesus. Yeah, that is a really, not always, the 2 times that I've watched the movie, I have thought about how insane of a narrative tool that is to have the stuff with Mrs. Lonely Hearts going on at the same time that Thornwall is getting ready to come back into the apartment, just so that there's that split moment where the camera shifts down and we're looking at Mrs. Or Miss Lonely Hearts, you know, hoping that she doesn't do what we think that she's about to do, which then allows the bad guy to get into the apartment unnoticed, because if we had kept our attention on that room, we would have been able to help. But like you said, because there's that moment where focus needs to be shifted, you know, then Jeff is unable to do either. It's such a wild movie. It's insane to think that this movie was made in 1954, but at the same time, it's not, because
Right.
so much of, again, like we said at the top, so much of what's come after this movie is like directly pulling from this. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting is that you watch a lot of movies that are clearly riffing on Rear Window, and they all have the same cinematic tools, right? They all have the same cinematic language that was available to Hitchcock in 1954. And it seems like no one is able to recreate what happens here. And no one is able to build the same kind of tension. No one is able to introduce characters with so much clarity, the way that Hitchcock is able to. And you wonder why, but I feel like we've kind of hit on all of those reasons. It's because it's because there's no shift in perspective. Like, we never go to a strictly objective view of like what's going on. We never cut into the apartment. We don't even see the murder happen.
Right.
Your first time watching this movie, a lot of it is wondering, is Jeffries making all of this up because he's bored and doesn't want to pay attention to the beautiful woman in his life,
Right.
Like, that's
And-
a very
and-
real thing. Yeah.
And he shows us Thorwald leaving with a woman, but Jeff doesn't see it.
Yeah.
So we're like, is that something that he's showing us so that we'll know that Jeff's chasing his own tail in this? But no, he's trying to trick us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
I was worried when I first watched it that Jeff was going to be one of those unreliable narrators that everybody thinks he's crazy. Everybody thinks he's crazy until the very end when they show that he's not crazy and he almost dies. But we get enough hints and we see enough through Jeff's eyes, that Thorwald did do something to his wife. I mean, why does he have two huge knives like that he's wrapping up a newspaper? And why is he getting rid of the mattress? And so you see those things and you're like, okay, something is happening. And then Stella and Lisa, they start to come on board too. They see the same things. And I think the only person who continues to think that Jeff's crazy is his friend, his detective friend. So that was one of the things I appreciated, because they're so, the unreliable narrator is so big right now. And there's been so many movies that kind of, are they crazy? Are they not crazy? And it kind of gets boring. Yeah. So I appreciated that they kind of played on that a little bit, but they also showed the audience that, look, he's not crazy. There's absolutely something going on here. It's just a matter of, is he going to be able to quote unquote, catch this guy in time before he's able to flee or do it again to somebody else. So,
Bob, I feel like you had something else too that you were about to say.
It was so minor and completely irrelevant to the thread that I feel embarrassed. So
Please tell us.
I'm not going to bring it up. It was because I was thinking, things are there was something that niggling that bothered me this time watching it. And it was the only shot in the movie that isn't a shot directly from Jeff's apartment on the set. And it's really early on in the first few sequences when the girls go to the top of a building and they throw their clothes over the side. And then there's this really bad blue screen shot of a helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
And I was like, and every time I'm like, this does not belong in this movie, this shot.
No.
It's just for a hack joke. But
you know what?
Yeah.
Hitchcock, bad director.
That's my takeaway.
Took me out of the whole movie.
Yeah. Everything positive we just said about him for the last hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We take it back.
That just ruins it. Ruins it all.
Out the rear window.
Out the rear window.
I'm sorry.
I like that. Wow. Anything else that you guys want to bring up about Rear Window that we haven't already hit on?
One shot I really love the shot when the dog is killed and they just see the not the shot of the dog dead.
Let's back up.
after when they're looking around and they just see Thorwald, and they don't actually see Thorwald, they just see the light of his cigar going
Oh
in and
yeah.
out. Just
Yeah,
such a
that was
great,
great.
intimidating type of shot.
So creepy.
Because there's nothing really intimidating about Thorwald
Mm-mm.
himself. I mean, other than the fact that you think he may have murdered his wife, but he's not particularly like intimidating. He looks pretty normal, but they do such a good job of making the suspense around him still work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off of that, the shot that I really enjoy is when he actually comes into Jeff's apartment and he's shadowed almost in that light. Very creepy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's like the only light is illuminating his eyes. So
Right. Yeah. And I think it's the moonlight too, isn't it? That's illuminating
Yeah.
him. So it just, and like Bob had mentioned earlier, you don't even know that once he comes in the apartment, it doesn't hold as much tension, but knowing he's coming down that hallway and at the door, that's really, really creepy. And as soon as he opens that door and it's just the shadow and the moonlight, I don't know. I get the chills when I watch that part.
That was Jacob.
Oh, was that Jacob? Okay.
Yeah.
One of you had that great point.
Yeah. Just want to give
There's so many boys on this podcast. I don't know.
The other thing that Raph mentioned, and it might be kind of, you mentioned that Stella might be your favorite character, and I think also I was going to bring that up because I know before I think we had done kind of like MVPs, and in a movie with the two biggest kind of stars at that time, James Stewart and Grace Kelly. I think her name's Thelma Ritter.
Yeah.
She just comes in and really just, I mean, she's great, and all of her chemistry with James Stewart is perfectly on point the whole time. I've also found her to be one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole movie.
Absolutely agree. She's hilarious. She gets all the best lines, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until I was watching it again today, just her delivery and everything. I was like, well, I've seen her. I don't think I've seen her much beyond this, but I realized during Christmas time, I watched Miracle on 34th Street,
right.
and she's the mother who thanks the guy at Macy's for the Santa Claus sending her to the proper store to get a gift for her son. I was like, hey, I didn't know she was in that. So I don't know. That was exciting to me.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, that's awesome. I hadn't
That is
realized that either.
Yeah. Yeah. Same lady.
That's great. That would have been
Yeah.
a great transition into recommendations. But I did have one more thing that I wanted to quickly bring up. And I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this, but we were talking before about the restraint that's shown in never veering from the point of view of Jeffries and his apartment, except for that one god awful helicopter shot. I feel like
Terrible.
the other thing that this movie really benefits from, that is something that is both a blessing and a curse for movies made after, is that there's so much sexual tension and violent tension in this movie, but we never see either. This is, you watch this and it's a PG movie, but bubbling just underneath the surface is, this movie is like really horny, and also there are like giant machetes, like this movie
Right.
wants to be sexy and violent, but it can't be because it's 1954.
Yeah.
But I think, while I was rewatching it, I was wondering, like, how would this movie play if there actually is like some gruesome violence, if the last showdown between Jeffries and Mr. Thornwald ends in Thornwald getting thrown out of the window and like it's like a bloody mess, or if there's more explicit sex that we see in some of the other windows. Like, I don't think that it has the same effect.
No, I don't think that you need it. It's the not seeing, it's the imagination that I think is the important part of this movie. Is you're looking at from Jeff's point of view, and it's everything is him just coming to his own conclusions. And I think that's what the audience does as well. I think that adding some more gratuitous shots of, if they were to redo this movie today, I guarantee there'd probably be blood and sex in it, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
But I do not think that this movie needed it. And it probably would have taken away some of the suspense and some of that, excitement even to show more, instead of just letting the audience peek into these people's lives every now and then and come to your own conclusions about what's going on.
And Hitchcock himself, if he had had that ability, may have leaned more in that direction and could have made a worse film because of it. So, I mean, in general, I don't think, the Hays Code probably not the best thing that ever happened to the movies, but it may have kept Alfred Hitchcock sort of within some rails that helped to kind of push this one a little bit forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. And, it's all from Jeff's point of view, and he's obviously a frustrated, he's been in that cast for however long, and the best that he can do is haul out that enormous camera.
Scratching stick. Oh, the camera. The camera. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. Well, the scratching stick as well, but yeah.
I love that scene.
Yep.
Trying to shove it down his pants.
Yeah. Yep. So it's all, it's for the better. The restraint.
Well, and then he's also got Grace Kelly on his lap kissing him. So,
oh man,
at least the first part, and then he starts to get distracted by murder. But yeah. Poor guy. That's why he's so grumpy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very frustrated. And it's funny to me because they keep, like, the women keep asking him if there's something wrong with him. Is there a secret that you need to keep? Like, no.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
He's not going to tell them.
Yeah. Nope. No, sir.
Oh boy.
This is a completely silly aside, but I just have to bring it up. Of course, the musician is the guy who goes on to create Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No.
That actor. Oh, yes.
Are you really?
Yeah, yeah.
What? How old is Alvin?
What?
Wow.
Ross Bagdasarian, yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
That's just one of those stupid things. I was like, seriously, that's the Alvin and Chipmunks guy? And I
love those little details, though. I like hearing that kind of stuff where things are connected like that. It's fun.
I love that every time he starts playing that theme, and it's one of the few original pieces of music in there, Lisa's always captivated by it. And it's the name of the song is Lisa.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang it. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Well, and they finally have words to it at the very end. And that's the word Lisa. So it's kind of cool. And
what if they
one more stupid thing?
And, what if they kind of went back and re-edited some things and made it to where that really is instead of a character in the movie, that's really the actor, and the music you hear is actually Alvin and the Chipmunks music. How would that affect the movie?
There's got to be a movie edit somewhere.
Jeff
That
can't
would be
see
so
it from
fun.
his window, but there are 3 little chipmunks singing
That
along
live there.
to music in that apartment.
Speaking of that, not really, but I'm assuming that you all saw the Hitchcock cameo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't see that the first 2 times I watched it. I got it today. I was like, wait a second. Again, I haven't watched a lot of his movies, so I didn't realize that he did cameos in his film. So that's my fault.
And he usually doesn't do speaking roles, which is pretty funny.
Right.
He's always just like
Right.
a guy in the background.
Right. You just winding the clock. I was like, all right. And I always wondered, I was like, what's that guy doing there? Like, this musician can't get up and wind his own clock. Why is he? I don't know. Was he fixing it? I don't know. But it was funny.
He says something to him. I can
Does
only
he?
assume it's chipmunks. I'm telling
Chipmunks.
you. Chipmunks.
They're the next big thing.
Hear me out. Chipmunk.
Oh, we
Chipmunks.
gotta say one thing about the costume designer, Edith Head. She's a very famous costume designer. She She did a bunch of Hitchcock's movies. All of her costumes are so amazing in this. Really on point for everything. She's also the bassist for the character in The Incredibles that makes the costumes.
Edna Mode?
Yes. So
Really?
her look is based
God,
on
jeez.
Edith Head's look. So
I'll be deep diving on Google tonight because there's all this stuff I had no clue. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. She's also
Grace
the
Kelly's
designer.
dresses, man, her dresses in this movie
Oh
were.
my God. Right.
I don't wear a lot of dresses, but I was jealous. I was like, I would just wear that. I would wear these out. I don't care. They were so beautiful.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you borrow mine.
Yeah. All right. How do we move on from that? But,
yeah. I don't.
Grace
Very
Kelly's
carefully.
dresses are amazing.
Yeah.
Let's before we do recommendations, this is something we do in some episodes. We don't do it for every episode, but I feel like, you know what? Never mind. Let's just go to recommendations.
Oh no, you can't do
He
that.
dangled it in front of us.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I did real time editing. I was gonna say a last second or one last final argument for why this movie should be essential, but I feel like Rear Window is so obvious that we don't need it.
Yeah, I think that we this whole episode, I think we talked about why this movie is so essential. Yeah,
So,
it's brilliant.
Yeah. Sweet. So I feel like we covered everything. You know, this movie is. I keep using the word insane, just because I'm a basic little bro and I can't think of. I don't have a large enough vocabulary to express how much I appreciate this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Before we jump into recommendations, you guys have any final thoughts to bring up? We got the Chipmunks, which I feel like is big.
Oh, I don't know.
We did it. This movie is undoubtedly essential. I feel like there's no question. Anyone who's seen it will tell you that. I can't think of any reason why someone would not like this movie, but to each their own.
Yeah.
Either way, I think it's time for us to jump into some recommendations. As you all know, for each movie that we introduce into the canon, we also recommend 3 things to check out if you like said movie. One of those 3 things has to be another movie, but it can't be a movie that's in the canon. The other 2 things can be any and everything: a restaurant, a book, a TV show, an album, an artist, a painting, whatever. We like to get really weird with it. We like to get really creative. Like I said, the other 2 things could also be other movies. But if we're recommending movies, it just can't be movies that are in the canon. So obviously no Birds, no Vertigo, all that good stuff. All that being said, I think it's time to jump in. And let's go with the order: Ramona, Bob, Jacob, and then Raph.
Yes.
We'll each give one. We'll give a brief explanation for why we're recommending it, and then we'll kick it over to the next person, and we'll have a jolly old time. Let's do it.
So I get to go first. This is very exciting. I'm always afraid someone's going to take one of mine before I can say it, and then I'll panic. So one of my recommendations for Rear Window, if you enjoy this movie and want to see something similar, in 2022, there was a quote-unquote horror film called Watcher that I believe is on Shudder now. I'm not sure. But I can never know how to say her name. Micah Monroe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she is an actress who moves to Bucharest. Bucharest? This is me not knowing how to say anything. But anyway, she moves there with her husband, and she is unnerved by a man who watches into her apartment at night. And she begins to think he might be behind a string of murders happening around the area. So she's not physically isolated the way that Jeff is, but she is in a foreign country. She doesn't speak the language. Her husband is away a lot. So in a way, she is kind of isolated with this fear and paranoia. And I watched this for the first time today, actually, and I found it to be a really tense thriller, a great analogy for female anxiety. And it did have some very similar parallels to Rear Window, including the shot of the darkened apartment and the cigar lighting up briefly. So that's my recommendation. Watcher from 2022.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in, that was one of my recommendations.
Yes!
Oh, no!
I went first. Oh, no.
But it's a great recommendation. I obviously agree. It's very it's got this great subtlety to it, kind of the opposite of what when you're watching Rear Window and you still have that question of, okay, we think there's a murder that's happened. Are we sure? You know, what's so great about this is some of the camera shots in it. You don't know. You know that she's feeling like she's being watched, but even she doesn't know if her feelings are quite justified or not, because she definitely sees a guy in some of the same places as her as the film goes on too, but there's nothing particularly creepy and sometimes you just kind of see around a corner and you don't really see them. And not only does that make it like, okay, well, the other people around her aren't really sure, if she's overthinking it. She herself thinks she might be going a little bit paranoid, and that's just it's such a great tension throughout the movie.
Yep, I loved it. It was great.
I love
Nice.
that.
Add it
Great
to
minds.
the list.
Yeah.
You have to add that to my list as well. Well, so I guess that covers Ramona and Jacob for first round.
Yep.
Yay.
Unless you have any backups that you can go to.
Not especially. I'll just do the other two.
We'll count that. All right. We'll count that for the first one for both of you guys. That's amazing. I love that you guys were on the same page with that. Because I usually go last, I'll always list like 5, just so I have a couple backups just in case.
Right. That's smart.
Yeah. We'll see. Bob, what's your first pick?
I have ordered mine in the order of most connections to the film we're talking about to the least connections. So
Nice.
The first one is actually another murder mystery movie based on a story by Cornell Woolrich, who did the story that Rear Window is based on. And it's about a young boy who happens to witness a murder through an apartment window during a heat wave in the middle of Manhattan, and can't get anybody to believe that he saw what he saw. Of course, he is a inveterate liar, the boy who cried wolf. In fact, I think the story was called The Boy Who Cried Murder. But this is The Window, 1949 film noir murder mystery. It's actually the first film that was shot completely on location in New York City. I think there's another more famous film that says it is, and it did come out first, but The Window was actually shot beforehand. And one more connection is that it was directed by a guy named Ted Tetzlaff, who was the cinematographer on Notorious for Alfred Hitchcock. It's a really well done, low budget little noir murder mystery, kind of buoyed by the performance of its young male star, who was a Disney movie kid that I cannot remember his name at the moment, but
Justin
it's
Timberlake.
it's a good,
Justin
Timberlake. Justin Timberlake.
Right, he was a Disney guy.
It's a little before
Bobby
his
Driscoll.
time. Bobby Driscoll, that's it.
There
he was
you
like
go.
in Song of the South or something like that. So
Jeez.
That's a good pick.
that's
like
my
that.
rank.
I never heard of The Window. I'm gonna have to add that to my long list of things to watch.
You drop the rear and you just get Window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy to remember.
Nice. Sweet. Good first picks. I like this. So for my first recommendation, I'm going to go with a book that I feel like is definitely heavily influenced by Rear Window. It was also made into a movie. Not a huge fan of the movie, but I feel like the book is good murder mystery fun. Excuse me. I am, of course, talking about, I'm forgetting the year, but the murder mystery novel, The Girl on the Train, also about someone
Yes.
who, looks out their window and projects a story onto others that ends up being real. There is a murder that takes place, and she ends up solving it. And the writer is Paula Hawkins. It's a very fun, very quick, easy, sort of like beach read murder mystery novel. Ton of fun.
Great book. I love the book.
Cool.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
a great movie.
It was all right. The book is always better. That's just how it works. Yeah.
It was really it was that post Gone Girl era where we were all looking for the next Gone Girl novel to movie sort of move, and Girl on the Train was like next up, and fun book, okay movie. Yeah. But I'm just recommending the book. But watch the movie if you want. If you don't want to dedicate the time to reading the movie or reading the book.
Reading the movie.
Whoops.
I mean, technically, yeah.
You could read a movie. All right, Ramona, back to you before I gotta gather myself.
Okay, so my next one is not a movie or a book, but I had picked, with the help from my husband, who is a big fan of The Simpsons, the episode called Bart of Darkness. Is that someone's pick?
Yes.
Did I take someone else's pick? Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. I actually have more lists, but that was on my list.
First. Yeah, so after breaking his leg, in a pool, Bart is in a wheelchair and he is stuck in his room and he spies on his neighbors with a telescope. And he is convinced that Ned Flanders, of course, has committed a murder. So I vaguely remember seeing this many, many years ago, but according to my husband, it's one of the Simpsons' better episodes, and better parodies. So that is going to be my recommendation for my second pick.
That is a good one. That is a good episode. So. Season 6 opener, I think. So.
Oh, back when it was still really good.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Simpsons, yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, Jacob, we'll go to you next.
Well, I kind of put it down earlier in the episode, but I will recommend Disturbia, even though it's a bit of a watered down Rear Window. The real reason that I would recommend Disturbia, in the main way I think it's different than Rear Window, is for David Morse, who plays the
neighbor.
The neighbor, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
He's just like, whereas in Rear Window, he's not necessarily intimidating himself. This guy really is really intimidating, and in a movie that's kind of good, not essential cinema, I think his villain is really, really fun and really intimidating. And I mean, the movie does a good job. I don't think it's just completely schlock. I think it's fairly well rounded, even if it's a little bit of a Rear Window light to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's an enjoyable movie.
That was peak Shia LaBeouf.
I remember seeing that in the theater when it was released. And I don't remember much about it, but I know that I'm pretty sure I enjoyed it.
I like the
but
Rihanna
I don't remember
song.
a lot.
No Connection, right?
The what?
The Rihanna song?
No.
So,
yeah, man, Shia LaBeouf. It was like this, Transformers, and that movie Eagle Eye, like all released around.
Oh yeah,
like the same year and a half, and he was like the next thing, and then that Indiana Jones movie.
I would defend Eagle Eye.
I
love Eagle Eye.
I thought that was a good movie.
I didn't mind that.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of yeah, there's some good stuff there. All right, we're pretty off topic. That's a good pick, though, Jacob.
Yeah.
Bob, we'll go to you next.
Okay, so this is one that might be in the canon. So if it is, you get to boo. But it's another. It was the first collaboration between Hitchcock and Jimmy Stewart. It's also another, single location sort of movie. One of like three, I think Hitchcock did. So Lifeboat, this movie, and Rear Window are kind of like self-contained. But it's Rope,
Yes.
1948. Not in the canon.
Not in the canon.
Yay.
Yeah, the whole shtick is that it's kind of a single take movie. It's obviously cameras at the time could only shoot for 10 minutes at a time, so there's a lot of camera passing behind things and then coming out from behind things. But it's a two young men decide to commit the perfect murder and then invite people who are related to the person that they've murdered over to the apartment and try to get one over on people. So it's not
twisted.
Hitchcock's. Yeah, it is. Oh, it's very.
Jeez.
I mean, like they serve the meal on top of the trunk that the body is in.
What?
Yeah.
I need to watch this movie.
It's got some really twisted things in it. Jimmy Stewart's probably the best part of the movie. It's a little bit of an experimental film for Hitchcock, but it's enjoyable, but definitely not in his top tier of films.
It's really funny. I did not know a thing about Rope until yesterday, and I have not seen it. But when Ramona took my first pick on a dime, I was like, well, Rope. It's like Rope has James Stewart and his Alfred Hitchcock, and
I'll take that
seems
one.
really cool, like Rear Window. So
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Was that
it's no problem. I have my other thing. It's just really funny to me.
Next time we're on the same episode, Jacob, you can go before.
Yeah, Jacob
me.
is going to go first. Oh man, that is an awesome recommendation. I have not seen it, but I hear it's interesting, and the whole one take thing is always an interesting move for a movie.
It also has one of the weirdest of the Hitchcock appearances because it's, his famous outline in neon out one of the windows. So he's not actually physically in it. It's just a neon outline of his face.
Wow.
Well, I'm not going to go with Hitchcock for my second recommendation. I don't know which one I want to go with first. You know what? Okay. So for my next recommendation, I'm going to go with one single episode of TV, sort of similar to Ramona. But my connection to Rear Window is there's sort of a little arc within the show of a male character who's really distracted by a ton of stuff that's going on in his life. But there's also this female character that keeps pursuing him, and she is like so damn horny for him, just like, dude, like, please kiss me. Like I need this right now. And the guy is just like, I got so much other stuff to do. There might be murders going on. I got to build my restaurant. I am, of course, talking about season 2, episode 6 of The Bear. Where
I haven't watched The Bear yet.
Oh.
Now I want to.
It's such a non-connection to Rear Window, but I really, because I love that meme so much of Grace Kelly's character saying, "Babe, I'm so horny, please have sex with me," and then Jimmy Smith's character is like, I think there was a murder. I needed to find something that was like within that realm. So The Bear season 2, episode 6.
Nice.
All
right.
That's on
The
the
Bear
list,
one take
actually.
episode. The Bear one take episode is why I was looking at Rope.
Oh wow.
Oh,
One take.
that's
One take movie.
all connected.
Connections.
Man.
It's all connected.
For a second there, I thought for sure Jacob was going to say that was my
my last pick.
Yeah. There's no way that we both could have been thinking of that specific episode of The Bear.
That would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
I almost feel like you've got to have Jacob go first in this next round just to make sure.
Just in case.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Jacob, give us your third recommendation.
Okay, well, my third recommendation is something I haven't actually participated in, but so I just happened to be in a Books A Million or a Barnes and Noble a week or two ago, and saw there was actually a Rear Window board game. I have no idea of the actual quality of it. Like I said, I haven't played. I looked at some reviews. It seems like it's kind of fun. It's not like a murder mystery box where you can only play it one time, which I think is obviously murder mystery boxes are fun. And that's also a good segue for Rear Window. But to have something that is, it's very Rear Window branded. Everything's, just like the movie or whatever. And you do some, I'm not sure exactly the rules. But if you get it, make sure to get it from like Target or somewhere, because I looked back online and it's like half the price at Target that it was at Barnes & Noble. So do not be suckered over there.
That's cool. I love board games, man. I love them. So I'm definitely putting this on the list. Yeah.
I've seen that at Target a few times, but I buy board games and then they're like collector's items. I never play them. So that doesn't matter. I'll probably buy it.
Well, they all look so good. And then you get to the actual instructions and it's like,
it's like, what? Yeah. What do they expect from me?
Nice. I'm not a big board game guy, but that does seem like something that I would like to check out.
It would look good on your shelf, if nothing else.
Yeah.
True.
It's got a good rating on Board Game Geek.
There you go.
Sweet. Okay, was that anyone else's pick?
No. It's a great pick, though.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we avoided disaster. So now we'll go back to Ramona for your third pick.
Okay, so my third pick is also another movie I watched for the first time today. I wanted to make sure that these picks were firm. So I have chosen The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks.
Oh no.
Hey, Carrie Fisher. I've never seen this movie, which is shocking because I love Tom Hanks. But obviously, if you've seen this movie, you know that Tom Hanks and his neighbors, they believe that the new quote-unquote family that has moved in next door are satanic cult members who like to murder and bury people in their backyard. And of course, they decide to investigate. So shenanigans ensue. More humorous shenanigans than Rear Window, but shenanigans nonetheless. So that's my third choice.
I like it.
Very cool. It is a funny movie.
It was very odd, but I did find myself laughing, so that was a plus.
Yep.
I can kind of see how it became kind of this cult classic among movie fans. So I enjoyed it.
That's like early Tom Hanks too, right?
Oh yeah, Tom Hanks and Corey Feldman and nice. A lot of people. Carrie Fisher, who I felt was a little wasted, but she looked great too. So she's in that.
Yeah, I forget that's a Joe Dante film. It's like, let's do Gremlins and then this.
Oh yeah, there's a big discrepancy there, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's so true.
Didn't he also do? What's that movie with the fish? Piranha.
Yeah, that was like his first movie for Roger Corman. I love that movie though.
I don't like anything in the ocean.
Yeah.
True.
If you've listened to the
it's in a river.
Episode, you know that.
Keep Ramona out of the water, just in, hopefully not in a cast, but just peering out through the window.
Oh God, that'd be miserable.
All right, this last one is my Sailor tribute pick.
Nice.
So it's way out there. But of course, it's a little further down on the list because I had to check off The Simpsons.
Sorry.
But it's really the only connection is that it involves a camera. In fact, camera is essential to the gameplay for this entire video game series. This is the video game. The only one of the series I played is the first one. So Fatal Frame, which is a Japanese survival horror game in which you have to survive a haunted house by trapping the ghosts on special film in the camera that you use. But you have to actually frame the picture up correctly and get the ghost in the middle of it and take the picture as part of the gameplay.
Goodness.
So it's
really
spooky as hell. It's spooky as
Is
hell.
it?
Yeah. But I mean, it was made in like 2002, something like that. So it's 2002 spooky video game.
Which might be
But my memory is I couldn't finish it.
Oh.
too spooky or
Too spooky or just difficult?
It's just one of those. It triggered specific sort of jump scare things that get me every time because you're kind of fumbling with the frame, trying to make sure you get the ghost in, and by the time you do, it's in your face and eating your face.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I died a lot, and I decided I didn't need to finish that game, but yeah, it was still fun for a while.
Yeah.
So recommending like the first half of that game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hear it might be good by the end. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a whole series of these games. There's a ton of them. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Very, very lightly connected by the most tenuous of threads.
I like it.
A camera.
The use of the camera as a weapon.
Yeah. Yep.
Or tool.
Yeah, no cameras as long as the one that Jeff uses, but hey.
Yeah.
It's not a competition.
That is one huge camera.
It's all right. Size doesn't matter as long as it gets the job done.
Yeah. You just got to frame it the right way.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Okay. So I haven't recommended a movie yet. So I got to do my movie. And I think my movie recommendation is going to have a very clear, or maybe not very clear, but a pretty clear connection to Rear Window. I don't think it's necessarily one of the movies that is like explicitly a knockoff of it, but it is another movie about a guy who witnesses a murder and must then stop said murderer. It's one of my favorite movies within said genre. It is, in my estimation, it, pound for pound as good of a movie as Rear Window. I'm of course talking about the Seth Rogen stoner flick Pineapple Express.
I almost added that to my list earlier. I almost did. I love that movie.
Who doesn't love a good guy sees murder, smoking
weed
kind of movie? Like,
that's a great recommendation.
Rear Window was missing a lot of the weed smoking. Could have made it a little bit better. If it was
Haven't seen it, so I've got to put it on the list.
It's I mean, this movie, like, for me, like, I think I was in high school when it came out, and I saw it in theaters, and it's the kind of movie that when you see it for the first time when you're 16, 17 years old, it's like the best thing ever. I was just like totally perfect demo for this kind of a movie, but I still love it. It's a good stoner flick.
Yeah.
So, all right, there we have it. That's recommendations. Before we say our final goodbyes and wrap this sucker up, let's really quickly, we'll do a quick 1, 2, 3 of what our recommendations are for Rear Window, and we'll go back to our original order. So Ramona, Bob, Jacob, Raph.
Okay, so my recommendations are Watcher, a movie from 2022, the Simpsons episode Bart of Darkness, and the comedy The Burbs.
My first pick was The Window, 1949. Rope, 1948, and the video game from 2002, Fatal Frame.
And my 3 were Disturbia, and also Watcher, and the Rear Window board game.
Love it. My 3 are The Girl on the Train, the novel by Paula Hawkins, The Bear, Season 2, Episode 6, another story about a horny girl who is trying to pursue a distracted guy, and Pineapple Express, Seth Rogen's stoner comedy, another movie about a guy who witnesses a murder. Jacob, Bob, Ramona, this has been so much fun. Thank you all for joining me. Before we leave, any last words? Anything that you guys want to plug, or make note that folks should be on the lookout for from any of your guys' corners?
Just checking out Screen Age. That's where all my stuff is.
Yeah, in the same boat.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Just waiting for the next pod.
Check out Screen Age.
Yeah.
Thank you guys again for joining. I'm looking forward to having all 3 of you back on at some point very soon throughout this season. Listeners, thank you for joining us and going on yet another great journey into another essential movie. Please continue to check us out on whatever podcast listening platform you use. If you want to give us a review, a rating, that would be great. If you want to share the show with your friends, it's all super helpful in helping us grow the show and continue to talk about some of these essential movies. Next week, I'm going to be talking Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Pat Brennan of the Commentary Podcast. Really looking forward to that one. Another great movie. Should be another great conversation. So we will see you next week. We will see you then. Until then, stay safe out there in the wasteland.